Welcome. Thank you so much for joining my free online resources and online tools for nurse aid instructors and owners. My name is Laura Williams and I am your PUR consultant. And part of my role and focus is to ensure that you feel equipped in your role. One of the things that I will be sharing with some of my subscribers this week is my first initial day that I became a nursing assistant. A nursing aid instructor and how excited I was and prepared I felt. But once it got to, I got my Hartman's book. I think it was the 4th edition. Got the workbook. I even got the teacher's instructor guide. Ooh, I felt equipped. But I recognized and realized day one that I didn't have a lesson plan, that I didn't know how to tackle the topics. I made some assumptions because I started off as a CNA that I kind of knew, like, okay, the material, and I did, but there's a lot of parts of it, just like in nursing school, that it's not real world, right? We're teaching the nurse aides what is expected, what is their scope of practice in more, just, what is the word I'm looking for? An environment that's more controlled. So I was, I had to go back and refresh and relearn that material. I started off as a CNA at 16, like really, so, and at that point I was an LVN. So I definitely needed to go back to the books and get a structure on how I wanted the students to progress through that. And I will be honest, I did it week by week. I didn't prepare before day one. I was in it, and week by week, I'm like, okay, this is how many chapters I'm going to cover. These are the days I'm going to do skills lab. And that's how I tackled it. I didn't realize, though, that Hartman had a lot of resources available for me as an instructor. I didn't realize that there were a lot of different online resources already created for me. So I definitely want to share that with you and equip you. So let's just get started. And thank you so much, as I said, for joining me today. So for those who want on my free session last Monday, I gave a background. I started off as a CNA at 16. It seems crazy that it's been that long ago. It actually started more as a decision to take care of my grandparents, and I talk about that in my last video. And man, I just didn't realize it was going to be a career, that it was going to be something I actually fall in love with, and I would like really shape my whole decisions, my education around. So I thank God for my grandparents, because it was because of their teachings, it was because of them raising me, that I learned to have such an endearment and respect and honor of seniors. And I definitely wanted to be intentional with it, trying to translate that same level of honor and respect to my students when I became a nurse aid instructor. Throughout my nursing career, just being an LVN and an RN, I definitely have always seemed to be positioned in a training mode. Even as a DON, or what we call a Health and Wellness Director, NAL, I was able to develop and cultivate my teams. And one of the biggest things that I always would ask in an interview setting is, what is your training? How do you train your associates? Don't give me a list of what they're not doing. Always, to me, it was a training problem. If a nurse aide is not doing something properly, then most likely you have paired them with someone who is doing it their way. Therefore, they're teaching it to them their way, or they're doing it the wrong way and they're teaching it to your new associate the wrong way. So you really have to go to the foundation of of teaching and training to be able to cultivate a team that is giving quality service to our seniors. You have to go to the root. So I always attacked my leadership roles, and that was my mindset: train, train, train. Cultivate, grow, and develop your associates to where you need them to be so you can sleep at night. So throughout my career, I was able to decrease falls, decrease narcotic uses, all these different markers that we see in healthcare. I was able to celebrate those victories because of training and because of giving my associates more than a lecture or a review of a policy, playing games with them and teaching them about the statistics of our community in a fun way, and allowing them to think more deeper about the circumstances they were faced. So now I bring that same mindset into the classroom. I don't take that hat off at all. I want them to be able to understand that they're not going to get a perfect resident, that the resident has several chronic conditions, comorbidities. They may have Alzheimer's and dementia on top of that. How do you, nurse aide, interact, respond, and report those things and those changes when a resident is occurring? So that's the type of stuff that I wanted to do. So I actually created my own exams, and they weren't multiple choice. They were actually open paragraph. You had to describe different things for me because I wanted to see if you understand, and I gave them real life examples that I dealt with and I've heard from my nursing friends to be able to cultivate their thinking, critical thinking, right? I love those nurses in LVN school who were like Air Force, military, because they were, to me, the best. They went beyond my LVN education. They went beyond the RN curriculum, and they felt like we needed to know what the doctor knows because we're reviewing those orders. We have to check it and make sure it's correct. If they make a mistake and we don't check it, it's like as if we made a mistake, and usually that's how the tables turn, right? So I also want our nursing assistants to know how we think as nurses. What do we want them to see and report so that they can be prepared to give us a good report and also to respond appropriately to a resident in that situation? So that kind of gives you a little bit about my style and my way of thinking when we're talking about cultivating a nursing assistant. So today our agenda is we're going to be talking about creating effective case studies. Google Classroom shortcuts, I really talked about that on the first video, and I may not go into that on this one. If you want to see how to navigate Google Classroom, I would recommend that you look at the first video, and it's posted on my YouTube channel. Cultural connections, I didn't get to go into that in the first call, but we're going to dive into that a little bit today, and then also go into an interactive online tools that you probably know, but I hope that I'm going to be adding some new knowledge about how you can utilize those tools and actually what's already there that you may not know is available to you. So one of the questions I asked on the last call is, what challenges do you face with student engagement online? And even we can translate that to the classroom. You know, we can see in a student not participating, let's be honest. You know, regardless if they're in the class and they, you know, have paid for it, we can see a lack of participation. So how do you cultivate those students? And one of the biggest things that I always say, you need to jump in with 2 feet. Don't shy away from that student that has their head down in the phone, or that student that's online who has their video off, like I put at the very bottom. Don't shy away. Call them out and say, hey, I would love to see your beautiful face. That's what I would say, or your handsome face. I would love to see your beautiful face, and remind them that actually, class, part of your participation is me seeing you visually on camera, and also to see that you're engaged. I want to see your eyes throughout our time together. So when you begin to address those things head on at the front, put those expectations there, your students will honor that. I've not really had a student who's just like, I don't want to be here. So cultivate them, have fun with them is key too. You want to balance your structure. You want to balance your personality. You want to balance how you interact. You don't always want to be that nurse or that instructor that is like, this is what we do when we do it. You also want to have fun in those type of situations. Also, get your students to laugh and enjoy what you're talking about. Another challenge that I've heard from instructors and owners who are instructing as they're building a team is that they don't think the nurse aide students can learn virtually. So for those of you who don't know, I created an online platform. It's called My Online CNA Platform. And actually there's pre-recorded lectures, reviews, and I also will set up your Google Classroom for you and upload it so you don't have to do the work. Yes, that's right. Take that off your list of things to do. Give it to me, and we will do that. We'll take care of that for you and even teach you how to navigate Google Classroom. I think it's a very user-friendly platform to utilize, even for students in the classroom, actually. It doesn't have, it takes away those papers. It takes away you having to keep up with a grade book. So I definitely recommend that you look into Google Classroom if you haven't already. So that's another thing that I've heard from nurse aid instructors, is that concern that their students can't learn or have more difficulty. And I just say go into that a little bit more, dig into that student, engage with them, and see, you know, what difficulties they may be having, because there's usually something that is resolvable. And then some instructors just don't feel comfortable with using online tools. So actually what I do full time is teach all day on Zoom. I train health and wellness directors, DONs and skilled, that are in their first 12 weeks of our company. So I'm literally in this all day long. So I'm very comfortable with it, and I think I almost was forced to be that way, but I'm also that paper pen nurse who has to have my notepad and things of that nature. So the tools that we reviewed last week are pretty simple. I definitely showed you that. And then I also will show you some that you know that already have been created for CNA. So you just have to go in and utilize it. You don't have to create it for yourself. So let's see. Hey, how are you, Victoria? Thanks for joining.
Am I able to unmute myself?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Okay, good.
Definitely, definitely. All right, so I wanted to just talk about some cultural connections, since I wasn't able to get into that in our last session last week. And these are some common questions that I will ask in different ways, shape, or forms. But at the core of it, this is what I'm asking. If I have a student look at a video over Alzheimer's, for instance, the first thing I want to know, what was new to you? And that information really is rich for me as an instructor, because it tells me that, first of all, I'm not just giving any kind of resource. I'm actually giving information and resources that complement what we're teaching in a classroom setting. So knowing and asking them what was new that you learned today that you didn't know. And also it gives you an idea of what they may have thought they knew and kind of just updated that and enriches that a little bit, and also throw out old stuff that they may have heard through the grapevine, as we would say. We want to make sure that they're not transitioning information from someone else that may have been a caregiver for years and may not be doing it the way that we are teaching them to do it today. And then we want to ask them, was there anything that you recognize? And this is where I usually hear the stories about loved ones that have had conditions, and then it becomes a similar thing that they can make, you know, connections with, which is important. The other thing is, how does it connect to what you already know, and how does it fit? So when we're, most of our students are minorities. I think from what I can tell and what I've had in my class, I've had very diverse classes. Where I've had people from different cultural and religious backgrounds. And, but most of the time we're dealing with people who look like me, Mexicans, Hispanics. And I think it's important that we connect their experiences to what we're teaching them. Because I'll give an example. When we're teaching, let's say in the nursing field, about abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, these are terms that in the healthcare field, they're black and white, right? What it is, how we should respond. But if we all think about our own experiences and what we've seen growing up, that's not the same translation. We are taught to kind of tolerate certain behaviors. We've seen our loved ones or our friends walk through these challenging circumstances, and nobody responds, and nobody calls for help, and nobody reports it. So one of the things that I think is important is connect those dots, connect those experiences, and allow them to see that there's two different ways that you may have seen things work in your world, in your life, But here in the healthcare industry, it's black and white. We don't hide abuse when it comes to residents. If you see a signs of abuse, or you hear an associate financially exploiting, or a family member, right, financially exploiting a resident, this is something that we don't keep to ourselves. So when we're thinking about making those cultural connections, and that's why I call it that, I always try to think of what is the background of my students, what are their experiences, and what has been taught to them in their how they should respond to those circumstances, and where we want them to make that disconnect, because we don't want them to bring that same mindset and experience in the healthcare field. And I know personally that's something that I had to learn as a CNA. I had to learn that, like, okay, this is different. In this arena, I need to, this is black and white. This is a black and white issue. There's not a gray situation. I mean, that actually goes into my third question. What are some real world examples that relate to this that can help you understand that further? And again, these are questions you're asking them. You're not answering those questions for them. You want to use this as a way to cultivate a healthy discussion. And it helps you, it's like a cheat sheet for me. It helps you understand, okay, I see where she's thinking and he's thinking, that's where I need to go. That's where I need to clarify some of these concepts and things, and make sure that they understand what is expected when they become a CNA and grow in the healthcare career. And of course, what does it remind you of? Is there anything that you can see in your own life that this topic that we're learning in our Hartman's book, or whatever textbook you're using, that you can connect that to? So Hartman doesn't actually do, in my mind, a very good job of making those cultural connections. There are other books that I've read for nursing assistants that actually are very intentional with asking those questions throughout the curriculum. So in my mind, I love Hartman's in that it's simple. It's not overwhelming. It doesn't remind me of a nursing school book. So it is my go-to book, but I've just made sure that I'm intentional with asking these questions, because I've seen supervising nursing assistants that they can bring that mindset in the communities and in the facilities. And we want them to leave our schools representing us. At least that's what I'm thinking. Like, you represent me when you leave, even though if I don't see you next 10 years. And we can't help personalities and real rooted ideas, but we can ultimately try to transform them and change them, and also challenge them. So that's some questions I would recommend that you ask as it applies when you're working through your curriculum. So today we want to get into a case study. I actually created an example just for our time together, and just kind of talk about ways that I kind of use the case study. One of the things that I brought up last time was that I like to build the case study throughout the time of the class. So for instance, I may have the students, one of the group activities I actually have them do is look at an introduction video with Mary Maxwell. And I love it because she's a very funny comedian senior, and she describes the aging process in a very colorful manner. And the students love it, but I also add a writing activity because I want to know, okay, what are some new things you thought about? How would you engage with a resident like Ms. Maxwell? What, when you introduce yourself, what conversations will you have? And how will you cultivate a relationship with her? And then we start to build on ADLs, because as we get into Hartman's, we start talking about their role. So that might be the first situation where I might use Mary Maxwell as a case study person and just build in some questions. I always want to look at my objectives, right? We want to make sure that we're satisfying them, and it helps us, it just guides us on when we're creating anything for our nursing assistants. And the role, every question we want to create or any discussion, we always want to go back and tie it into that CNA role. And then what is the problem that we want them to identify? And I would even encourage you not to give them the problem. If we, like chapter 4 in Hartman's, goes over all of not all of them, but some of the chronic conditions. And after they reviewed it in lecture, and if you have them watch additional videos to complement what's happening in the body, which is something I do recommend. I want them to know what is happening when a resident has a myocardial infarction. I want them to see it visually. I don't want them to just read it on words. I want them to see it. But in that case study, you might give symptoms. And you might ask, like, okay, what condition is Miss Alice having? And that also causes you to think, did they pay attention? Did they read? Or whatever activities you gave them, did they truly actively participate in that and understood what was happening? Can they connect the dots from what we're lecturing online or in the classroom setting? So here is an example. So I give the shift-to-shift expectation, right? In skilled nursing, we want our CNAs to report to each other. I talk about how they should be walking, at least that was my expectation in skilled. You need to be going to the residence room, look at them, put your eyes on them. And then I highlight one resident specifically that's having some complications here, and talk about, you know, that she's having some increased confusion, some identifiers that there are some changes in her condition, just simple things. So I don't want them to be a nurse, but I want them to be able to identify some things, because I'm going to give them supported resources to be able to identify what's actually happening with Miss Alice. I also talk about her mood, because it's key to the condition that I'm highlighting, and what other things is happening behavior-wise. She's getting agitated, you know. That's important to know. If they're giving good report, then hopefully they'll be covering those type of details. And then I wanted to bring in an ADL. You know, during mealtime, Miss Alice is having a hard time focusing. So she's not eating, you know, she's not getting that nutrition. So I'm gonna build on that real simple example. And this would be after chapters 4 and 5 in our Hartman's book, where it talks about those chronic conditions, and now it's into Alzheimer's and dementia. And these are some questions that I may ask the students. You know, like I mentioned earlier, we don't want to just guide them, let them dig into it a little bit more. What condition does she have? You know, are they able to recognize that based on the symptoms and the expressions that I've described for Miss Alice in the previous example? Then I want to ask them about their role. I always want to tie that in. What is your role in providing care for this resident? And then give me some examples of what you would be reporting, because key role is for them to report to the nurse, report to us during the shift, and what that resident condition is, and what does the nurse want to know. Our Hartman's book does a great job of giving them an idea of what they should be observing, what they may observe, and what they should be reporting to the nurse. So again, that's complementing what you've already lectured. And then I said, based on the stage of the condition Miss Alice is on, what ADLs you think you may be assisting her with. So I'm trying to see if they can think through, based on where they are, stage of that condition. I'm gonna give them extra resources. So for this question, I actually gave the students a list of the different stages of Alzheimer's and dementia. So again, they have to get the information, they have to look at it, review it, identify what stage, which Hartman doesn't go into that, but it adds another layer of understanding, because that's what they're gonna see when they're in a long-term care facility. They're gonna see their residents progress through that disease process. And then I want them to tell me, what is a guideline, which goes back to the Hartman's book. What is that one guideline that you can do to decrease agitation for that resident? Which Hartman's book does a good job of describing. So it forces them to go in, read. It also lets them know that they just write what they think, or are they using the resources that I told them or pointed them to. And then write. So now I'm bringing it back to the initial part of the book where we talk about resident rights. Because if I would admit, throughout my nursing career, a lot of nursing assistants, especially with Alzheimer's and dementia, I think they throw rights out of the door. You know, they go into this mind of, we need to make Miss Alice, we need to do this, we need to do that. So we always want to tie in the rights, because that is something I've had to follow up. And yes, I understand she's confused. Yes, I understand she's agitated, but how do we honor her in this state? How do we respect her? How do we still get her to do what is going to be best for her health, but we're not just treating her like she's a child, because she's an adult with a progressive illness. So bringing in those rights in your case studies may be a good way to kind of see how your nurse aid students are thinking, and this is going to be one of those real life situations times 5, right? It's going to be more than just one resident. So they really have to navigate that. And I think this is where I've seen nurse aides, no matter how well they're trained, struggle because of how the resident can express and how that disease progression looks per resident. It looks different. They can become very aggressive and combative. So in some of my exams, I actually put in those components to help them kind of think through it. No, it doesn't necessarily put them in the real life situation, but it actually causes them to think about it before they get there, at least a little bit, right? Any questions about this? Any other questions you think we can ask initially on the first part of this case study that can help your students to kind of think a little bit deeper about residents who have this condition? And if you have used the case study, do you normally give them the condition, or do you ask for them to identify it? Let me know in the chat box, or you can get off mute. What do you think? Are these?
I don't tell them the condition. I just ask them what's in the case study as far as like what condition do they think that it is.
Yes, I love that. I love that because I want them to connect the dots, right? I love that. Any additional questions you think we should ask in regards to the case study?
No, not with this one, but like, for instance, like if there was a case study about a resident fell in the shower room, what would you do?
Yes.
And, you know, just thinking about those safety things like alerting the nurse, stay with the patient, you know, just making sure that their head is protected, things like that.
Yes, yes.
So we do talk about big on safety, and a lot, and like the first thing you need to do, notify the nurse, stay with the patient. Yeah, that's like, you can't go wrong if you get that in the A, B, C, or D selection.
Right, definitely. Yeah. Don't wait.
Right, right.
Awesome. Definitely. That's good. That is good.
Now, how many residence rights is in Hartman's book? Because it's way more than it used to be when I went to nursing aid school. It's like 10 or 13 of them or something. It's like more than.
Yeah, I think I would say 10. I would have to go back and review it.
Okay.
It's not all of them though. It's not the exclusive list, but I would say at least 10, if 10, not more. Mm-hmm. Yes, there is a good Jeopardy game I had showed them last week that actually goes into resident rights, really good.
Okay.
Yeah, that you could use in the classroom setting just to kind of get them to trigger a little bit. But I want to say at least 10. I'll have to go back and review.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of them don't apply to this specific situation, but there's a few that I was looking at when I was looking at the case study that I think the students could identify, okay, this is one I need to make sure that I'm honoring with this you know, right. This right. But I want to say a little, if not a little bit more than 10. It's definitely more than when I started teaching.
Right, right.
Definitely. So then I will actually add like a group activity in my case studies. And, you know, I have that, I'll always have an individual component, and then I try to include some collaboration. It definitely helps with timing and time in the classroom or online. You can put the students on a breakout session in Zoom. I'm not sure about the other video applications. I usually use Zoom, and that works pretty well for me. But I may give them these questions and have them go on breakout rooms, which will leave them from this main screen and put them in their own screen. And they have to work through these questions, or they have to come back the next day in the classroom setting and talk about it. You know, you might just give them 30 minutes. It just kind of depends on how you want them to progress through this, or is it homework for them? And they just have to collaborate with each other. So the resources that I actually gave with this one is the Alzheimer's, different stages of Alzheimer's disease. It also gives some different things that they can do and how to identify what stages, and that's why I was able to ask the question earlier, well, what stage, because Hartman's doesn't really go into that. So they do get to learn a little bit more. Also, there's a video that I love that talks about 12 minutes in the life of a resident with Alzheimer's. And every time I've shown that, and I just finished 3 classes a few weeks ago, Some of the students were almost in tears because of the impact of the video. And it really showed, you know, how challenging in the life of that resident, but it also, they allowed their loved ones to walk through some of those same type of experiences, you know, by blindfolding them, putting a noise in the background that never stopped. So you really get to see the challenges from a more personal standpoint of what is a resident going through. And it also explains the challenges that a nurse aide, even a nurse, that we experience when we're working with and supporting a resident with that diagnosis. So that's some additional resources that I may give, visual, and then something for them to dig into. I may even point them to the Alzheimer's.org because it's full of resources. And maybe I can add some additional questions to this, to the group discussion. So the last one is role play. This is one that I think is good because the students get to have a little fun with it, but also think through, how will I communicate? You know, Miss Alice is not eating. She's, you know, getting up for mealtime. How will I encourage her to eat? And this is also one of those examples you can pair your students off and get them to kind of get into talking through that difficulty, and hopefully give them some type of reenactment of what they may experience and prepare them for that. Because this is one of those diagnoses that I do agree that students really struggle with when they're working with residents with Alzheimer's and dementia. And we have more people being diagnosed later, it's just a reality in every facility. So these are some things that you can do even to parallel the individual part, is have them do a group activity in addition to that. Is that something that you normally do with your case studies, Victoria, is do a group activity, or how do you incorporate group stuff in your classroom?
I had not did a group activity, like per se, like a case study.
Okay.
But we have done some things together as a group, but not in the form of a case study, which I think I'm going to do this tomorrow with them.
Yeah, and I can send you this one, and you can just take it and make it your own. Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely.
And so, like, we do have case studies in the book, but it's just mainly that they're doing it on their own and not so much like a case study. I mean, a group activity, which I think, like you said, to get them really thinking instead of like going through the questions and mm-hmm. seeing, you know, having them answer, have them actually just pair up and do it as a group.
And work
so I
through
think
it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and then it maximizes your time with them too. And
yeah.
And then it gives you time to give feedback, because I noticed, mm-hmm. you know, I'll see them do something like, let's rewind.
Right.
And even have the students say, did you see something that maybe we shouldn't have done? So then mm-hmm. you add that classroom setting where they're giving feedback to each other too, which I think is always helpful.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's a good thoughts. So one, I know that we talked about Flipgrid before, and I just wanted to show one way that this resource can be utilized, especially if it's on online or if you're using Google Classroom. You can definitely personalize it for your brand and your school, your label, so your students can know that it's your classroom. But just like, you know, I should log out of it, but when you get into there, you would give them a code. My code is my name. And then they would be entered into that Flipgrid. And whatever video that you put in here, they can click on it and look at a video that
so I didn't even realize that you recorded a reply.
So this is me and Victoria playing around with it.
Welcome to the class. My name is Laura Williams. And a fun fact that I have for you is when I was in high school, I actually had a very embarrassing moment. And that moment was, I was finished my orientation. I was a freshman, remind you. And it was orientation for everybody at this high school. So again, I'm excited. I'm going to see some girls, some of my friends, some guys. Like, it's exciting, right? After it's all done, the bus city bus that would take me home pulls up, and I'm afraid that I'm going to miss it. So me and my friends began to run for the bus. And there's this little bar that was in the school yard. And I ran and I attempted to jump over that bar. And your guess is right, I didn't make it. And I fell. And it was the most embarrassing fun fact moment of my life. I got up like nothing happened and continued to run for the bus, got on the bus, and guess what? Everybody on the bus saw that moment. So that is a fun fact about me. Welcome to the class. I would like to know, what is your fun fact?
So actually the students can reply. And it stays there. So as you build into your classroom, they can actually see previous student statements. And I mean, you can do, one of the fun things that my daughter was like, Mom, why don't you have them do a blooper? And I'm like, a blooper? She's like, yeah. Like, what is the wrong way to communicate to a resident? You know, so it's a fun way of them identifying what not to do, but they can use technology, you know, as a tool to be able to respond short, sweet, fun, you know. So this is one resource that I'm starting to integrate into my online platform. Also, it's just there. I don't have to do it again. I'm one of those people who like to do it early, get it done, and just, you know, and that way it's there and it's always working for me. And Flipgrid allows you to do that. So that's something that I definitely recommend that you can utilize online, or you can do it in your classroom. So one, say it again.
So like for us, yeah,
giving me some feedback on how we could use it in a fun way. But the welcome video is one. Even with the group activity, let's say we go back to that one. We can even say, hey, give us the best thing that you didn't know, one of the most important things that you just didn't realize about a resident who had the condition that we reviewed. And they can just visually give you that feedback, you know, versus just writing. So, you know, you can tie that in. And I'm actually working on a course to teach owners and instructors how to build a platform similar to what I did on their own. The only thing that's time consuming about that for me was the lectures, because I pre-recorded all of the lectures for the chapters in Hartman's. Outside of that, once you get that part done and pace yourself through that, it's just more the nitty gritty of, okay, what site do I want to use? What, you know, so those are the things that I'm actually going to be working on to just kind of have it already there. Since I've done it, I can put the knowledge out there.
So I see what you're saying. So I didn't even think about that at all. So, because I was trying to figure out, like, so you pre-recorded your lessons, and then you just had the content with it.
Yep.
How many times did it take you to record it to get it right?
That's a good question. So I recorded lessons with students first. And then I was like, you know what? That's not going to be a good thing, because I have to get permissions from all of those students. So for one of my clients, that was okay for her because that's her students that I'm recording. You know, I was doing her lectures live for her. But when I thought about, you know what, I need to invest in my own platform, I don't want these students on there. You know, I would have to get permissions and all that stuff. Right. So that is what took more time, is just having to go back to the first few chapters and record it without them. And I used Hartman's PowerPoints, you know, and I literally just took away, because Hartman's PowerPoints are, I don't know if you've seen them, they're like 100 and some pages sometimes. So that took time. It's just weeding out what I want to focus on, make it that, and then I projected from Zoom and I recorded it, and I used Dropbox. You can use Dropbox or VMO, or you can use the cloud on Zoom. But it took time. I would say that was the longest part of the process, is just recording those lectures. And the longest lectures for me were chapters 1, 2, and 4. They were like, I feel like they were going on and on in my mind.
Yeah.
Because
this is like the bulk of everything is kind of.
Yes, it's just big content areas.
Yeah.
So that's everything else. It was just a matter of learning and just, you know, putting stuff where I wanted it to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
That gives me like a visual because I didn't even think about the recorded. So like, I got the free sample with Hartman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I chose not to go with Hartman because the RCPs, it just did not flow with Indiana's guideline. So that's the reason why, you know, like when they do the hand washing, it's totally different. When they do the bathing, it was different. It was like 3 or 4 things that I noticed. I was like, I don't want to have to get that, didn't have to tell the students, hey, don't do this, do that. So for Indiana, the good thing is that our curriculum is already done for us.
Oh, yeah.
So therefore, you know, I can upload, and then, you know, you can copy those because it's on the website. It's like public information. So that's good. But I just didn't know how I would break it down to make it teachable online. But then when you say the pre-recorded lectures, I'm like,
yes.
That's what it is. And like you said, just kind of putting things together how you want it to flow, input your videos, your quizzes, and whatever else. So yeah, I just need to be cloned to get all that done.
I know. So that's part of what I do. That's part of what I offer.
Okay. Very good. Very, very good.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that at the end.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. But that gives you a picture of how to do that.
Yeah.
So,
much clearer.
Definitely. And you just have to put the time in that part. Ugh, if I could have got another mouse.
Yes. But the thing about it is that once you're done, you're done.
That's what I kept telling myself every time.
So,
like, my husband's like, you doing another one? I was like, yeah, but when I'm done, I'm done.
You're done. That's it. So yeah, good.
Definitely. So everybody knows about Kahoots, but so you can also copy and paste. I don't know. I'm sure your book probably come with some resources and quiz, maybe. Hartman's definitely does. I think their resources are pretty underutilized because they don't do a good job of sharing it. When I started as an instructor, I didn't know I had quizzes already made for me through Hartman. So I did all of that from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah, which is crazy. So you could create a Kahoot based on those quizzes that are already made, or just as a stopping point, let's do a check-in. So I would say like maybe 10 questions of something. You can do some true and false. You can do multiple choice. So it's pretty cool. But one of the things that I actually discovered on Kahoot is that there are already some pre-made CNA Kahoots.
Oh.
Yes. So you don't have to, let me look for my little Discover. I put the wrong one. Go into Discover. So the only thing, as always for me, is reviewing, right? Reviewing what they're reviewing, who created it. If it's something that's worth stuff that I want to review with my students, is it the same content? So that's the only biggest point, is just looking at what questions are they asking? Does it connect to the curriculum in the book that I'm reviewing? But it's already there. So you can play it. You can do it from a teaching standpoint.
Oh, well, that right there states 2016 review CNA test for Indiana. So that's pertaining to Indiana.
Oh, it does. I didn't even. Perfect.
Yes. So I like that. So that was you just typed in public. So which one would it fall under?
So what I did was, let me go up here. So at the very top, I clicked Discover.
Okay.
All right, let's go here. And then find me a Kahoot about, and I just put CNA.
CNA, okay.
And then it generates all of the ones that have been created. And it just happened that yours is the first, that Indiana's the first one. Wow, I didn't even notice that. So just review, you know, the content, see if it connects to your book, and, you know, looks like it's a summary of stuff. And it's how many questions? It's 48 questions. So it's a lot.
So do that give, so when you're playing, because it's been a long time since I was in here. So when this is a game.
Yes.
And it's not like it's a quiz that's going to grade each student input answers that they input, right? Or do
Well, it actually does in a way. Like, I'll just go into the teaching part of it. So you can choose if you want to do teams, so they can be on team mode or classic. I've used it in nursing school. So what they need to do, so if you're projecting it in the classroom, they go to Kahoot it, and they just put in that code.
Okay.
I'm gonna show you as it's playing this music.
Okay.
I believe that my
Doctor, is that Ziggy or Ziggler or something like that?
I can do what you nurses do.
I'm gonna get it started.
Got
Hold on.
it like
They must have put their own little music in.
I hit the break room for potluck and van.
Oh my
I
God.
can't with him.
30 cold lights and I smell feces. I try
That's
to be
so
the vibe and be
So
trying not be lying and not follow.
I'm pressing start. So at the beginning, it showed my name. So what you'll see is the student's name come up on your screen, and they can put nicknames or whatever. So then it shows the question, and this is how it looked live. So it's counting down right here. They ask the question, and then they have to put in the answer, and it shows the right answer right on live. So you can So you can use it as a tool to teach from and be like, well, yes, you're correct, or no, some of you got it wrong, let's discuss it. Or it can be from a competitive standpoint, like, oh, okay, I see that this group is doing amazing, and they put nicknames. My family loves it. We actually use it to play different games in the house, and then it'll grade them for how fast they put in the response and for correction, and then you'll just see that scoreboard go all the way down. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really do like this.
Yeah.
It's interactive. Yeah. I'm loving the colors because my youngest student is 18 and the oldest is 40. The other three are in their 20s. So I know the first day was like, and I had already warned them, the first day is going to be long.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I can't add in some of the stimulation, because like I'm watching their body language, either we take a break or we kind of like go over something, or I talk about something else. But this right here, because they all have, you got to have a smartphone, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Smartphone, laptop.
Okay.
Yeah. And we used it in nursing school, which it was pretty fun because people got really competitive.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just interactive. It's so simple, but I mean, in our class, I mean, just even nursing school, I mean, you're fresh out of high school to your older people who are reinventing themselves. And there's not one person that didn't, in my mind, interact and like it.
Okay. So this looks like it didn't have a restriction on how many people individually, or you can pair it up in teams. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. From what I've seen, yeah, we had like 100 and something students on there.
I like that.
Yeah, and it'll score them at the end. It'll show who won. It kind of gives a scoreboard, and I turned off the sound so we can kind of talk through it. But there's different. If you're creating it, you can put different background music on it. It gives you different options. But yeah, maybe check this one out and see if it fits, because if it's already created, you don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can also create your own game with your own questions and stuff?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Oh my goodness. I created all of my quizzes through WordMint. My quizzes, my tests, and the final exam.
Okay.
And so, which was fine because I was learning too. So it's like, it was a good thing for me, but I really do like this because it's almost like, here's a quiz.
Right.
And you can do the percentage of how many they got right, and that's their quiz grade. Nobody will know what it is.
Right. Yeah.
I like this.
So when you do your you can do a free what am I trying to say? Just a free user thing on here. Go on and create it yourself as a student. This one is a teacher account for me, but you can create it. Go on. I'm gonna just go through it a little bit here so you can kind of see. It also asks like if you want a template, or you want to just kind of create it from scratch. I always like to see what the template offers. So there's actually one I was playing with this weekend just to start building stuff. So what I did, like if your book or even your quizzes, like you mentioned your quizzes, copy and paste it.
And put it right on in there.
Just put it on in here. Just copy and paste that. Change it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then you can even remove this picture. get you another image that fits. You know, you can upload it from your computer, or use, you know, like I was looking up like students, looking up pictures here to see something different, because the pictures in this template is more younger group of students, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So you can just kind of change it to fit, you know, we want some free options. I was looking at free.
Okay.
Yes. So, you know, maybe something like this, you know, that you can put in there. Then when you get to your, after you copy and paste your question here, you go down, click on your answer, copy and paste your answer. You can change that. If it's your correct answer, you just turn that little button and it goes there, or you can press it. Like, let's say you forget to do that, you can press it. Okay, that's my right answer, that's not.
Okay.
And then you just click on them, and then you just keep going at it from that standpoint. And you scroll down and it's saved as you go.
Oh, wow.
And you just, you know, customize it to what you want it to be.
So okay, so you were up at number, it says 1 quiz, and then second one says 2 quiz. So is that like number 1, number 2?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's quiz because it's given multiple choice answers. So that's their term for, we're giving them 4 options. Like this one is a true and false. So you can put, you know, is it true that, or, you know, whatever the question may be. So this is just considered a true and false question. So it's their label. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I really like that.
Yeah. So you can just do some.
It makes me want to sit down in the student desk and.
Yes, it does. Honestly, we do it, especially when we do like a Bible study or something. I will create questions, and we have fun as a family, and we're all ages up in here. So in nursing school, they used it a lot, and it was good. It was a competitive way to check in and be like, oh, wow, you know what? I thought that was what she said. But then, so it is a way to even check their own knowledge.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I do recommend that you look at, I reviewed Jeopardy Labs last week. With
what was it, Jeopardy?
Jeopardy Labs.
Okay.
Let me show you here. So Jeopardy Labs is another free resource that we reviewed last week that has Jeopardies that are already created for CNAs.
Okay.
My students really like this, just anything Jeopardy. So again, you can create your Jeopardy, or you can find a Jeopardy game that already is created, and you can alter that. You can edit it. So I just, you know, like always, I put in CNA. I'm like, okay, what's this here? What we got? So then it gives you some examples of what that looks like. And I always just kind of review just the information. So what I like about Jeopardy Labs is it actually puts them in teams, so you can divide your classroom up in teams. And then at the very bottom, as they're getting it right or wrong, you can actually alter the points at the very bottom. So I'm altering them right now. So
I'm not familiar with Jeopardy. So I'll take 100 Arlington Hills, or Arlington Hills a team. Oh, and then you click on it and got it. Okay, that's simple enough. Okay.
Yes. And then the space bar is to reveal the right question.
Okay.
So what I noticed that some of them too, and then you can exit out of it, and then it'll grade out.
Got you. Okay. So click on, I'll take 500, Joan.
500.
Let's see what that question. When you ask question to TCDB,
which I don't even know what TCDB is.
I'm trying to say what?
Yeah.
When you ask a patient to, turn, cough, and deep breathe.
Oh, okay. I was like,
yeah, what are you asking him or her to do?
So then they can answer, okay. Have them get together and be like, okay, what is it? What is it? You know.
So and what's the right answer? Do I have an answer, or I was the one that had to create the answer? Okay, there we go. So I got 500 points.
Yes. So the resident right. So then you would alter that at the bottom. Let's say you were team 2. We're gonna put 500 for team 2. So then they can see their points on the screen in your classroom.
Oh my God, I'm going to have so much fun tomorrow. Oh my goodness, this is so neat.
Yeah, it's simple and it's free. Like free.
Yeah.
They love it. I surveyed a lot of my students, especially for the free stuff, because I'm like, okay, let me see how they really like Jeopardy. One group was a little older, and Jeopardy was their thing. They loved it. They got competitive. They talked smack. It's like,
oh my
that
goodness.
was their thing. Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. They also have bingo on here.
Okay.
That's free. Let me click on the bingo. And again, you can find cards, CNA.
Okay.
So you can look and see, okay, which one do I want? We're gonna click on it. So what will happen here, you can project it. You can print it out and download it, or you can give them a link and it would actually bring them to this Jeopardy card. So I'm gonna do a full screen just to see here what it will look like. So what I do like with the card option, let me go back into here. When they click on it, they can actually mark them out virtually on their phone. So this is another way to keep them busy. You know, I don't know, resident assistant CNA and EL, what is the responsibility? You know, maybe they have to tell you. Some of the responsibilities of a resident assistant in AL is assistant a resident with showers. I don't know.
Okay.
They can actually mark it. They can mark it on here.
So like by being the teacher, I would say, or like what would I like draw something out to, I don't know, how do I get it going?
So what you can do is you can look for one on here. Let me go back a little bit. Click in CNA to search and see what they got already generated, already created. You can definitely create your own as always. Let's see.
You know how bingo, you have to like wind up that thing and pull out a number like B8. So how will I know, or if I'm just saying, okay, whoever can tell me about what's turning every 2 hours, you know, what's the purpose of turning a resident every 2 hours? And then that person gets it, or whoever answered that right first, and they will mark that off their card.
They can mark it that way, or you can have them on the phone. You have your laptop up, and right here is your call list.
Oh, okay.
So you can say, hypoglycemia, tell me some signs and symptoms. So you would just add more information to that. Tell me some signs and symptoms to if a resident is experiencing hypoglycemia. And then on their screen, they're going to be seeing it from this perspective, and they're going to mark it. Oh, yes, you did get that right. You know, they're going to mark it that they got it right.
Got it. Okay. Okay. I see. Because that call card. Okay.
Yeah. So another little free resource that's already generated for you. Definitely. So do you use Google Classroom?
No.
Okay.
No, because I'm not online. So I mean, I just started resuming my classes. We finish up week 1. Tomorrow starts week 2.
Okay.
So and this is my 3rd class of teaching because everything was on hold. So we're still in the classroom.
Okay.
But
okay. I'm gonna just show you. I think it's something you can do in class. I started out with it because of online and, you know, where we were with COVID. But I'll just give you a glimpse of how you can use it. You can use it in either way. My daughter's high school had been using it throughout the year. They definitely depended upon it in COVID time.
Okay.
Most definitely. But I'll give you an example of the class that one of the classes I finished, just so you can kind of see the benefits of it. Okay. So you have a stream. which is like your message board. So if I wanted to post videos or just give them, hey class, tomorrow, don't forget, we're gonna be reviewing chapters 1 and 2, you can just put that in here, post it, and it actually goes to their email. And if they have an iPhone or smartphone, they can actually download it on their phone. I grade it from the Google Classroom app, so it's very accessible.
There's a Google Classroom app?
Yep. All for free.
Because Google Classroom app.
Yeah. There's a Google Classroom app. So I have access to all of my, I think next time I have a picture of my screen of all of my classes that I am teaching, and I can, you know, pull them up, look at them. If a student sends me a message, I'll get a notification on my phone, just like any app, you know, that notifies you. You can turn it on and silence it, or you can have it available.
So one question that was concerning to me, so like my classroom hours it's 5 hours, 9 to 2, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, in my mind, how do you keep your students that like attention span when you're doing online teaching in a Zoom? In a classroom is different because you can get up, you can practice, you can do different things. So how do you keep their attention for 5 hours if your classes are even that long?
Yeah, that's true. So I'm thinking about my lectures that I recorded. I don't think I've had one that's that long intentionally, right? Because we don't want to lecture on, I don't know, online is just different when it comes to that. I don't think anybody wants to sit in front of the camera for 5 hours.
Right, because the state has stated that if we do online, then we have to show that they completed those hours in the online setting.
Yeah. So what I would do is break it up. Like, you remember I talked about those group activities? So like for instance, I may lecture for 50 minutes. Usually I do a 50 minutes, 10-minute break.
Okay.
And then in between there, I'll go to class work here just to kind of show you some of the, let me go here. We might have some quizzes. I had them do like a PowerPoint at the beginning that they actually was able to create on Google Classroom for me to see. There we go. So I added some group activities in per class, you know, for the first week or two. So on one of those breaks, I will have them go look at the video that I posted. It's actually Miss Mary. I love Miss Mary Maxwell. And then I have a writing assignment in that they need to document and write and review for that assignment. So that takes some time. Then we come back and we do lecture, and then we do Q&A. So then we may do a breakout session. So you might just do more breaking up of things. But that class, we started at 8 my time, and we went in roughly about noon because they were from South Carolina. Those students were South Carolina. But
they remain physically in the classroom.
No, they were in their homes. I taught them in their home.
That's what I meant, like in their home, but yes. Online.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would tell them take a step back. You know, for 10 minutes, we all would take a break. We would come back on, and they were able to tolerate. I mean, they didn't, you know, the flexibility. I mean, I saw a lot of babies, you know, which I love because they didn't have childcare and they couldn't do childcare in the midst of COVID. So there was a lot of barriers removed because I was able to do it virtually for those students. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to. So yeah, you're giving me a lot. You have made me feel a little bit more at ease with going ahead and building this online site. Mm-hmm. So because in my eyes, I'm like, well, my classes are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but the pre-recorded lectures. See, that's the thing. I don't know. I'm gonna have to find out, because if everything is pre-recorded, it can just automate. But then it's like, I don't know. Like I said, the state, when I asked them about online, do they have anything? They was like, yes, you can do. The question that I gave them was, can we teach the theory part online, on a online platform such as Zoom, and I got a one sentence, half of like a fragmented sentence that says, yes, you can do Zoom.
I actually, I have a question to Arizona yet that I'm waiting for. And one of the things that I asked in addition to, because I think some of them are like, well, I don't know about the pre-recorded. So one of the things I asked, well, can we do that live? So what I did for South Carolina is once I started recording the lectures, I'm not going to re-lecture something. I didn't put energy in that, right? So I would actually project, just kind of like I projected the flip grid, instead it fits more into the screen. I would actually project my lecture so those students can see it. I would pause it, ask questions, had them put it in the chat box, and then we will keep going into the lecture. So I'm live with them. So that's one point I would ask, you know, what if we are virtually doing it together? I'm there being able to ask questions, and I'm adding other interactive tools like Kahoot and other supportive services, you know, resources to ensure that they're getting the curriculum. So that might be something to ask too. If you're gonna put time into the pre-recording, they might be like, well, no, they need to be with you. Okay, what if we are doing it live together? We're looking at, just like we look at a video, we watch it together and we debrief about that video.
Right.
So I'm asking those questions to Arizona, and then I'm gonna be asking those questions to Florida because I have a potential client from there.
Okay.
So just
So
kind of
what
depends.
do the student view looks like if they were doing a lecture, if you were doing a lecture or an assignment? What does that look like? Is it pretty much the same?
For from this perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Let me log into. It looks different. Anything that's bolded like this, they do see it. If I had this in the draft form, it would look great out for me, and the students cannot see it. But let me see if, let me log into a student account that I created, so you can kind of see how it looks for their standpoint.
Okay.
Oh, let me see. Don't tell me I forgot my password. Maybe not. Maybe, or did I? No, I did. Dang it. So this one, it reminds me. I'm gonna have to, trying to think what I can show you. Let me go into one of the classroom assignments and see if we can answer it from that standpoint. So for instance, let's say you had a quiz that the students is assigned. You can actually set when they see that assignment, you can close it out when you don't want them to be able to respond anymore. But this would be their view from a quiz perspective. They have to put in their email. I always recommend that, and I'll show you how to make sure that setting is. Also, I always have a question that says type your first name, because they have so many, you know, we create so many email addresses. It doesn't always, it's not always obvious. So one way to save yourself from that is just have them type their name in there, and then they answer those questions. I created a multiple choice abbreviations, because for this school, that's one of the things they want them to learn, common abbreviations. So this is their view. They just click on it, you know, and then they're able to submit it.
Okay, and it's graded at the end. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
So at that pencil, so if you had activities for your students to do, if you wanted to eliminate the paper, you still can use Google Classroom for your class. It's just this will be where they do those type of assignments, even the exams. Even the exams. So that pencil view that I have an arrow at the very bottom, this only shows for you, the instructor, not the student. And what it allows you to do is to edit this form, this document, and to be able to see the grades. Notice that on the very top here, responses is opened up. And that's showing me how many students responded to this quiz.
Okay.
And then it gives you some insights from a bar standpoint, like how many grades, you know, where were they? Average, medium, range. And then it actually
go back up a little bit. So they will even get their score of the quiz emailed to them?
Yes, once you release it, it will go to them.
Okay. I
And
like
then
that. That cuts down on paper.
it does. That's why I'm like, I think you can use it. You can use it in a classroom setting. I wish I knew about it years ago. So here you can look at it from an individual perspective and see what that individual student got right or wrong.
Okay.
All right. So that's one way to look at it. You also can run a grade book on here. So I'm just gonna view assignment. I'm actually gonna get out of this class just because I want to ensure I don't show their information, but I want to show you how it looks from that standpoint. Okay, perfect. So me, the instructor, I go in, I want to grade and release grades to students. I'm gonna just press on view assignment. And all of your students is gonna be listed here. And this is actually gonna be not there. I messed with it. It'll look like this, you know, grayed out. After I kind of reviewed their grades, I know that, you know, I know the grades that the students had because I looked in the back of the form like I just showed you, and I can grade it. And it will give me the option to return that grade to the students, and then immediately they get an email with the grade that I just released.
So you have to manually put in the grade that they got from that quiz?
You do. It grades it for you, but it doesn't, you can release it, but you have to make it official on this, in this part of it.
Okay.
The other thing that it does is your grade book. That little screw, only in this view assignment standpoint, you actually can, every grade, copy all grades. I usually use the Google Sheets because I can send it to the schools. And I'll show you what that looks like once it populates here. All right, awesome. So anything that, any assignments that is you know, not grayed out that I've assigned, it'll show on this top bar. And it will have your students listed here, all the way down. It'll actually show their average based on the scores that I just manually put in and affirmed. And it'll show all of their scores here.
Okay.
And you can print it out. This is your grade book, you know. If you only want to see certain things, just quizzes, you can always alter what you see here and hide certain things. But you can run those grades, you know, however often you want to, and print it out and have your grade book and review it with your student, per student, however you do your normal review.
Okay, that works.
Mm-hmm. So this could be a substitute, you know, for those quizzes. And, you know, when it's time for quiz, okay, let's go ahead and log into Google Classroom, put up your devices. And that's what I normally do on Zoom. So virtually what I would do and what I have done is, if let's say we have a student that does not have a laptop or they only have a phone, they can do it on the phone. But what I've noticed is that their screen collapses. So I won't see their face. So they have to have two devices. So what I've had students do, they have two phones. Somebody else always have a smartphone. They use one to do the exam and one where I can see their face throughout the exam to ensure that they're not cheating. So what I'll do is I'll have them show me their space, make sure it's cleared off. They can't leave the environment unless they ask to take a break. And then again, once they come back, I have to see the environment before they go back and start the test, finish the test.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have this stream up here, which is your message. You have your classwork, which I saw. This is where we create assignments. Then you have your list of people. Like as you add your students, you can add them manually, or you can send them a code and they can add themselves. And then you have grades. And that, again, that's another way to look at how the students are progressing. You can even, let's say they all made 100 on the grade book. This is such a nice way I like it. You can actually go in and grade it that way, and then it gives you an option to return it. And again, that emails those students those grades.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I really like it. You know, when they walk in, they do see this, and then if there's anything you have assigned, they also will see it upcoming in that box there. They'll
Yeah.
see, okay, oh, I got a quiz that's coming up. I have a writing assignment I need to do. I think I'm going to actually create like a working group for Google Classroom just to work through how to create different assignments, and that way it's already built for those who want to use it. It's already done.
Right.
Yeah, because it's a really good resource. It's just getting your stuff in there, getting your exams and
Getting it all loaded.
getting it in there for you. Any questions that I can answer for you?
Nope, I'm excited to try this Jeopardy and Kahoot tomorrow.
Yes, let me know how it goes.
I will. I sure will.
These are some feedback. I surveyed all 60 of my students that just finished not too long ago. So I asked them about my question was, which activities did you like? What did you like about them? Just to give me more specific feedback, especially for my clients. So when I'm creating stuff for them, I know what works and what doesn't. So they gave me some feedback on the religious activity. I had them actually learn, because I think it's chapter 2 in Hartman's, that talk about different religious practices, eating habits, how to, and I asked them, how does the student honor those things, and what is your responsibility? But they really like the group activities. And I did that virtually. I didn't do that in the classroom. This is a virtual thing where we can actually put them in breakout groups and they get to talk. So that, so this is from a virtual standpoint. Definitely in the classroom, it definitely enhances it. So then the different games that, some that we've talked about today, they talked about the review. So we always did a review. Jeopardy was one of the games I used for review. Kahoot is a game that you can use for review. I even did a game called Stump Your Peer virtually. It's something that's usually done in person, so it's something you can do in your class. And I did it over chapter 4. So I don't know which book, I know you mentioned use a different book, but if it's a big chapter, what I may do is I put all the different topics. So I put all of the conditions on a PowerPoint. And I told them to pick one and write 3 questions, or pick a few, but you write no more than 3 questions of that condition. So then they have to go to their classmate and ask that question. And if they stump the classmate, meaning they can't answer it, they gain one of their questions. And the person who has the most questions at the end wins that game. So it was a good way for them to review material, get them moving around the classroom.
Right.
Virtually was them just talking to each other. And I have to get their permissions to post that on my online platform, because they had fun. It was one of the days my husband was like, wow, y'all laughing a lot. Yeah. It was really fun. We even added a lifeline. We were like, because some people were like, I don't know.
Can I phone a friend?
Huh?
I said, can I phone a friend?
Yes. I'm like, okay, we're going to add a lifeline. Call on somebody else to help you answer the question. But it was fun. So they really talked about the reviews and working together and laughing, because we did a lot of that. Had fun virtually. And then just the online experience, because that's a lot of questions that, as an owner, like, okay, how are they going to feel about it? So that's I just kind of put them in paragraphs that they love being able to be on class online. They love how the instructor was informed and explained the process in detail, and that they were tested and ready for their final exam. The teacher made it easy. So it's still all about you. You set that tone on how they feel about the process. And then they had a great time with their classmate, and they learned about a lot, so that's some of their feedback about the online experience. Yes. That is it. So
your shift with me. That shift with me, your platform.
Yes.
I love that shift with me, because I look at it as it's the shift key on your laptop or your keyboard, and it's an online thing. So shift, like let's shift from online to No, let's shift from classroom to online.
I love that.
I love it. I love it.
I
That is
love
really
that.
nice.
I love that. I love that.
How did you create that?
Let me just show you since we're here. Let me show you how it looks.
No, like how did you come up with that name?
Oh, like Shift With Me? Honestly,
Yeah.
I am a creator, Victoria. I'm a writer, and it just drops. You gave me a whole new revelation of it. I honestly,
Yes.
yeah.
Shift With Me. That's what I see. I'm like, I got to tell her I really like that because it's like you are training people to come from the classroom into an online platform. So shift the change with me.
Yes.
I love it. I really do like Shift With Me. I'm like, oh, that's all. And I'm looking at the shift keys and everything.
Yeah.
I get it.
I love that. You just gave me a whole new revelation of that. Yeah.
It's creative. I love it.
Definitely. But I would definitely love to show you how it flows in here, where we can just spend a little time so you can kind of get an idea of what you can do with your own platform. And then you use it when you want. Like for South Carolina, she's like, I think I'm just going to do it 3 times a year. I think they're going to offer online. So, I mean, it just, it also expands your territory, which is what I was posting about today. I was like, it enlarges your territory because you can kind of go a little bit further in your reach. And then those students just have to start reporting to you for skilled and clinicals.
Right. And so what I'm going to send an email to the state and ask them, when we do the online platform, does it have to be live or can it be pre-recorded? That still, with your lecture, it still gives you the required hours.
Yes.
You can break it down, but then they can also go in there not really too much self-paced because there's going to be deadlines.
Right.
So if they can say that it's like, I can do pre-recorded, I will have this done before the next quarter starts.
Yes.
That's what I mean. Like you said, then when they get through with that and pass and do their final exam, then pretty much they just have to just do their clinicals.
That's it. And if they don't like the self-paced, because I know Texas is they told one of my clients that it needed to be synchronous, which meant you needed to be live, there needed to be check-in points. So then what I would add to that conversation is, okay, they won't do it self-paced. They will be on a strict guideline or outline on when they need to complete certain things. Will that satisfy it? I'm doing checkpoints. They have the schedule in the syllabus when we're going to be checking in, reviewing, so maybe just, if you're like, no, okay, then add some of those type of terms to see if they are okay with that. Because some of them don't like the self-paced option and some of them don't care. I think it was Florida that's like.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So just think about it, maybe you need to add more focus points for those students and then they may feel more comfortable about it.
Right. Boy, that will free up so much time. Oh my God.
Yes.
Will free up so much time.
Yes.
So much time. And I could get more. Yes. Because I already have students. I have like 4 students on the waiting list now. But I kept this class 6 instead of the max of 10 or 11 because, with this whole COVID thing.
Right.
But so I'm going to